وإن يردك بخير فلا رد لفضله يصيب به من يشاء وهو الغفور الرحيم قل يا أيها الناس قد جاءكم الحق من ربكم فمن اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها وما أنا عليكم بوكيل واتبع ما يوحى إليك واصبر حتى يحكم الله وهو خير الحاكمين صدق الله العلي العظيم
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Inshallah, we continue reflecting on the ayat of Sura Yunus, Mecca surah revealed in Mecca, and began with confirmation of the revelation of the Holy Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and gave examples of previous nations, and many core principles were confirmed, especially regarding resurrection and returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment. And towards the end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared a concept which is very important for the believers to learn and implement, which is similar to the one we read in Surah Al-Kafirun. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. That we should not be followers of our society and the norms of the society if they are on the wrong path. We can coexist and live in peace with people, but that does not mean assimilate. So the concepts that in modern societies, they discuss the two ways of mixing cultures and migrations into new lands. Especially these concepts especially came about in the Western world, at least, with the migration of people into certain new lands, like United States, for instance, is one of them. We have Australia, for example. When I lived there, it was oftentimes a concept of or a subject of discussion. The two possibilities when you mix two societies or two cultures coming together into a society, whether they should coexist and live together, maintaining their culture and their their identity, or whether they should assimilate to the norms of, for instance, the majority. Okay, so whoever the majority is, or the ones that existed prior to them, should one assimilate and just give up their beliefs or culture for the sake of living amongst these people? Coexisting and living together does not mean, whether it be from a religious perspective or from modern human right perspective. Both would suggest that people should be able to come together and live together, maintaining their culture, maintaining their beliefs and traditions. Again, as long as those things do not disturb peace, okay, as long as those practices are not considered somehow inhumane or disturbing the peace in the society, they should be able to practice their religion, their beliefs, their traditions, and so on. So this concept has been established in Islam from the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some people think that the Muslim society imposed their culture and their beliefs upon the people around them, and that is completely incorrect. The government that was established eventually by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam set certain rules, which are the rules of governance. When you have when you establish a government and you establish some sort of an economic system, some sort of even security system, police force, and so on. When you do that, then you have some rules, and people living in that under those under this rulership, they would have to abide by these rules. But that the Prophet ﷺ never enforced or imposed believing in what he believed in, or practicing what he practiced. Respecting is definitely there, but people were not forced to practice or to believe. Christians and Jews and other groups of faith lived amongst the Muslims. Last night or yesterday, I spoke about, last night in fact, it was about dialogue. We had a Christian and Muslim dialogue. And I gave the example of Imam Rida alayhi salam, having the dialogues that he had in the debates he held, or he had that were held at his time. In those debates, people were brought from various schools of thought and various religious groups. Some of them were Sabbath. Some of them were Christians, some of them were Jews, some of them were of even other groups of thoughts, thank you, including the some who were considered Dahriya, for example. Dahriya are people who are like today's agnostic, where they suggest that, or even more towards atheists, suggest that this world brought itself into existence. Okay, there was no creator, so to speak. This world is almost like Mother Nature, having, you know, the Quran says to them, or says from their words, وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرِ, that nothing destroys us except time. Dahr, time itself. Life and time is what destroys us. In other words, there's no God that gives, in their word, that gives life and takes life and so on. So these people existed and debated with the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. We have those Dahriya debating with Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. We have them debating, or people of different groups of faith debating with Imam Rida alayhi salam. When they had these debates, it was in the Muslim Ummah. If it was a situation where you had to give up your faith to live amongst the Muslim Ummah, there would not be any debate. There would not be any dialogue. The fact that these dialogues existed is a proof that they lived and coexisted peacefully amongst each other. The wars and the battles that happened, and I'm not justifying all these battles or wars, but it was more about establishing of the government. Okay, some of it may have been justifiable, some of them might not be justifiable. Some of them may have been territorial, which we do not consider Islamic. Nevertheless, the concept of lakum dinukum waliyadin. You have your faith, I have mine. This concept never stopped, never ceased. Some suggest that this changed with time with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's incorrect. And we just gave the proof that the Prophet used to have dialogues with people of different groups of faith. And similarly, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt afterwards had those dialogues. So this concept had always existed. What is important is that regardless of which party, as Muslims, we don't impose our beliefs on anybody else, and we should not. We can share, we can educate the people about our beliefs. This is what dialogue is all about, coming together and discussing, but it's not about imposing. Okay, and we also expect that they do not impose their beliefs on us. So this, towards the end of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to His messenger to tell the people, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ إِن كُنْتُمْ فِي شَكٍّ مِّن دِينِي فَلَا أَعْبُدُ الَّذِينَ تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. This is where the concept is introduced. Say, O people. So the message here is for the people, all the people. Introduction of the religion and introducing your beliefs and faith should be to all the people. It's not limited to a certain group. And the declaration is, I do not worship whatever or whoever it is that you worship besides the one God. Min dunillah. Alladina, some suggest that this is a plural of conscious beings because they considered their gods as conscious. They considered their idols even as conscious. Yes, they don't speak back, but they are aware. That's how they perceive them. And so the plural comes in alladina. Nevertheless, the declaration is, I do not worship, and this should be the practice of the believers, that we do not follow the culture and traditions of our society if they are contradicting our beliefs, especially in the core when it comes to tawheed, min dunillah. Then he declares, further he goes on to declare what he actually worshipped. This is a further emphasis. So he already, by saying, I don't worship, but when you say La ilaha illallah, you already said that you only worship God. Because the first part refutes any gods, and the second part confirms the one God. The second part of the ayah, so already by saying La a'budu alladhina ta'buduna min dunillah, he already established that he only worships God. Yes? But further emphasis, he says Walakin a'budu Allah. Again, he said, but I only worship God, or the one God. Okay? Walakin a'budu Allah. However, here he clarifies something about God. The one that I worship, the God that I worship, is the God that gives and takes life. But he doesn't say that he gives life, he just shares the takes life. Alladhi yatawaffakum. Okay. Now you exist. What is confirmed in our mind, sometimes we forget that one day we were nothing. We forget that. We forget that we were born. You know, some of these dictators in today's world, when they are giving orders to and commands to whether it be an order for war, destruction, killing, whatever it is, they feel so powerful. They forget when they have, under their command an army, for example. They give the order. They feel so powerful. They forget that one day they were nothing. And when they were brought into this world, God gave them the ability to live and exist in this world. When they were brought, they were a weak. In Quran gives an example, the expression of ma'in mahin, a very insignificant water. That is one aspect of their how they came about. And then comes into this world weak. Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min da'f, extremely weak. And then they become strong, but eventually they become weak again. ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة ثم جعل من بعد قوة ضعفا وشيبة. So this cycle, they forget about all of that. Now, oftentimes people forget the beginning. That I often give this example when children, when you speak to children about earlier stages in your life, or show them pictures of your youth, they ask you, where was I? Okay, before they were ever born, they would often ask you, where was I? Why? Because they always existed. In their mind, they always existed. But at some point, we were nothing. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Nothing to be mentioned. So they forget that part. Quran, in this particular ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet, say to the people that I don't worship the gods that you worship besides God, but I worship the God that takes away your life. Now that you are in your strong, in your prime, you forget about your birth and weakness. Don't you realize that you're going to die sooner or later? Yeah. So, ولكن أعبد الله الذي يتوفاكم وأمرت أن أكون من المؤمنين. Now, this is an amazing part of the ayah, where it is not just I believe in God. No. And it's not just, it's my choice that I chose to believe in God. It's not a choice. I have been commanded to be amongst the mu'mineen, not just to worship God. ولكن أعبد الله الذي يتوفاكم وأمرت, I have been commanded to be amongst those who are mu'mineen. So, صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So the command is that from God, I have been commanded that I have to be amongst the mu'mineen. Again, it is not my option, and just merely worshipping is not enough. One has to go further and reach the levels of Iman. وَأُمِرْتُ, I have been commanded to be amongst the mu'mineen. Then وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. Now we're going further. Okay, so one is, who do you worship? Okay, on a basic level, they worship idols, I worship God. Next level is, I have been commanded to be amongst the believers. Okay, amongst those who not just declare their faith and are Muslim, because with the declaration of faith, you're a Muslim. Yes? If you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, you're a Muslim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. That is the first level. So if somebody asks you, who do you worship? You say, I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one God. The next thing is mu'min. Here, there is a level of faith in the heart. Okay, Iman is when it penetrates the heart. This is why in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to those who said, Amanna. قالت الأعراب آمنا. The A'rab said, we are now amongst the believers. Then the ayah says, no, don't say that. Say we're aslamna, we have surrendered. We have declared our faith as in worshipping the one God. This is Islam. However, Iman has to be وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Iman is where the hearts believe. We believe from the hearts. If we believe from the hearts, we feel the presence of God. For instance, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of the sinful ones, He says, أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. Does he not know that God sees? Iman is you recognize God with your heart. And when you recognize God with your heart, you remember God. It's in your heart. You know, something is in your heart. Faith, it's deep in your heart. Knowing and believing in God is in your heart. So when God is in your heart, Iman in God is in your heart, you're constantly aware of God. There is a story they mention about, Majnun. Majnun and the story of him and Layla. The Arabic or the Eastern story of Romeo and Juliet. Now, you cannot compare them when you look at even the name itself. Majnun was not named, his name was not Majnun, but he became referred to as Majnun because he was so mad in his love. Otherwise, his name was Qais. And he was, again, so mad in love. And some of the stories that are mentioned, now, whether it's a fiction or real or reality that was exaggerated, but some of the stories that are mentioned show an extreme that, and in fact, the story is often mentioned in the context of gaining nearness to God and loving God and having strong love for God. It's often used in that concept. So Majnun, according to the story, Layla's household had a dog, and that dog started running. So Majnun started chasing it, and because it's the dog of Layla. So as he was chasing it, he passed by some people who were praying, and he passed in front of them. He walked right in front of them. Now, perhaps too close to them, that was considered disrespectful. So anyhow, on his way back, he's perhaps found the dog, maybe took it to the house of Layla, made an impression. That was his thing, his whole goal. Nevertheless, on his way back, now he's done with his mission. He passes by them again. They had finished prayers, and so they asked him. They said, "Majnun, how rude of you! Did you not realize that we were praying? You passed by us, you're running, you're chasing a dog, and even if it's Layla's dog, why would you do that in front of us? We're praying right in front of us. Instead, you should have actually joined in prayers." So he looked at them and he said, "This is a problem. I did not even see you guys. All I could see was the dog, not even Layla in this case, the dog of Layla. That's all I could see. And you worshiping God? Shame on you." So how could you even see me? If you are really talib, this is the concept, is talib. Talib in Arfan, they consider it as one who seeks. Talib is one who seeks. Talib al-ilm is the one who seeks knowledge. The student is known as Talib al-ilm because he seeks knowledge. Talib, when it comes to the concept of nearest to God, you are seeking God. They say Talib is like the one who goes to ask for someone's hand, as in proposing, because in Arabic, when you go to propose, they call it taliba. You know, they're going to propose. Okay, so he is talib. If you love someone and that's who you want, you're seeking that person, you should not see anyone else. And if you talib of God and you're worshiping God, if God is in your heart, you would not see anything else. So again, the level of iman, when it gets deeper, then iman is deep in the heart, and therefore one will not even see. The heart would not recognize anything else, anyone else, would not want to please anyone else. The focus is God. Therefore, the next one is وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. Aqim takes, it is about establishment, standing, being firm, iqama. Aqim wajhaka. Make sure your face is firm. You know, like wearing blinders. When you're going to God and your focus is God and you want to see God, wajh is face. When you're facing God, make sure you're firm in that, to the point that you do not turn left and right. Your focus is God. وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ. And Hanif is basically one who does not get distracted, straight, with no distraction. Okay? So the people who believed in the one God at the time of Nabiullah, before the appointment of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ones who worship the one God through the teachings of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or in general without deviation, were referred to as Ahnaf. Okay, so the Prophet, for instance, his father, his grandfather, they were Ahnaf. They were not polytheists, they were not mushrikeen, as some claim, some of their enemies, Bani Umayyah and so on, claim. They never worshipped idols, and they were not Christian or Jew. So what were they? They were Ahnaf. Why not Christian or Jew? Christianity by then had a lot of distortions. Judaism had a lot of distortions. They remained, and this is why in the Imams, the Prophet and the Imams referred to them as Ahnaf, meaning they did not deviate. Okay? وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا, meaning don't deviate. No deviation. See God, focus on God, the religion of God, establish it right, your direction. Aqim wajhaka. This is about the direction. So aqim is to be firm. Wajhaka, direction, make sure you're in the right direction. Okay. Yes, we don't want to wear blinders in the sense that we don't see right from wrong. And therefore, even when we're on the wrong path, we think it's right and we keep going. That's not what we're suggesting. But when you know that this is the right path, then you stay firm on it and don't deviate. لا أعبد ما تعبدون لكم دينكم ولي دين. I don't worship what you worship. فلا أعبد الذين تعبدون من دون الله. I don't worship the ones you worship besides the one God. This is when you're on the right path. وأن أقم وجهك للدين حنيفا, no deviation. ولا تكونن من المشركين. Don't be amongst the mushrikeen. Now this is a further emphasis, because أقم وجهك للدين حنيفا is already not to be a mushrik. لا أعبد من ما تعبدون من دون الله is already no shirk. Further emphasis. And also to clarify, yes.
I just have a question on this. How you commanded to be among the faithful.
Yeah.
On one hand, we do have the love story,
Yeah.
knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to be attached. On the other hand, you also have the free will. So, how did that come into play for the Holy Prophet? There definitely was free will for the Holy Prophet, because the Prophet is being commanded here, yeah?
Yeah.
So how do you balance between free will and having commanded to? Like no choice, you're being commanded.
So the command for the faith is not imposing, or is not it's not taking away. Is not taking away the free will. Command. Uh, the free will doesn't mean that do whatever you want. Free will means you're allowed to. God will give you the ability to choose for yourself, but He commands you to do the right thing. Okay, so it's when we suggest free will, we're not suggesting, when we say that God has not, does not force religion onto us, doesn't mean that He doesn't want us to believe and follow the religion. That's what He wants for us. In fact, He told us, you follow this, there's the good news. You follow that path, there's bad news or warnings. Okay, so He wants us to believe. He commands us to believe. But it doesn't mean that He does not give us the choice to choose for ourselves. Okay? So our minds are free to choose. But what does He want from us? To choose the right thing. Okay? So umirtu, actually, that actually is a further proof of the free will of the Prophet. That ayah itself is a proof of the free will. I've been commanded means I have the when you get a command from the upper level management that you should do this, it means you had options and they're telling you to do this one and not the other one. Okay? Whereas when you have no options, they don't need to give you a command. If automatically the Prophet would choose faith, if God programmed us in a way that we would choose faith, He wouldn't have to give us a command or send a messenger. When He gives us a command, it tells us that we are capable of, we're able to choose right and wrong, and He's telling us choose right. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. God is telling us we showed mankind both paths. إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. We showed him the way. Either he can be grateful or he could be ungrateful. So both are shown because they're options that we could choose. If you were to, it's like a limitation. Let's say my arm, my elbow, okay, can only go to 90. It cannot go further. Okay, so to say, okay, I've commanded this arm not to go further, but it's not going to go further anyway. Okay, it's not programmed. But when I allow it to go, now I order you not to bring it this way, not to straighten, not to bend it this way, to keep it straight. It means that I have the option of bending it this way, and you're telling me I want you to keep it straight. The command is you stay straight. Okay. In other words, you can go astray, and the command from God is you choose for faith, believe, and follow His path. And in fact, وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا is part of the command as well. So the first, وَأُمِرْتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ. It's also a command from God that I have to keep my direction. Wajh is face or direction. To stay on the right direction, the path of God, the religion of God, without deviation, hanifan, without any deviation, and وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. So the deviations in the religion, this is important point, another point. Deviations in the religion lead or translate into polytheism. Deviations in the religion lead to or translate to polytheism, shirk. So if I'm not following if I'm not on the right path and I'm deviating, I am somehow having levels of shirk, different levels of shirk, and vice versa. This is important to keep in mind. oftentimes people ask, and I pause this question for a very good reason. Why does God consider the worst sin is shirk? إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. Shirk is a great oppression. Or in another ayah, he says, God will forgive many sins, or God will not forgive أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. He will not forgive shirk, and he will forgive what is below that for whomever he wishes. Okay? So why is shirk such a big thing? Is it about God being harmed by us choosing partners for him? Is it possible to be that way? Never. Can we ever harm God? Never. We can never affect God. Yes? So why? It's okay. I'll just hold it. So why is it such a bad concept that God does not forgive? He says, I will not forgive. إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به. Why? Not because, and this is why the ظلم عظيم. Why is it ظلم عظيم? Not because God is harmed. It's because shirk leads to great oppression. That's the reality of it. If people were monotheist, sincerely monotheist, today we would not have wars. That's the reality of it. Today we would not have bloodshed. If today there's bloodshed, and never ever agree or accept any claims that the wars are because of religion, or because people they are fighting for the religion. Never. Offensive war is by people who do not know God. They're polytheists. If he's worshiping God and I'm worshiping God, and I named God a different name, I have the right to kill him, to fight him, or her, whoever. There's one God. قُلِ ادْعُوا اللَّهَ أَوْ ادْعُوا الرَّحْمَنَ. Call him God, call him Allah, call him Rahman, the merciful. أَيًّمَّا تَدْعُوا. Whatever you name him, all the beautiful names belong to him. أَيًّمَّا تَدْعُوا فَلَهُ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. All of the beautiful names belong to him. So God, Khuda, you, whatever you want to name him. Whatever in your religion you call him Jehovah, Yahweh, call him God. But you worship God. And this is what real believers see others as believers, as brothers. إِمَّا أَخٌ لَكَ فِي الدِّينِ أَوْ Monotheism, again, further than that, even if he's not a believer. Isn't he created by God? Did some other God create him? The God that loves. We know God as Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim created them. Yes? What does he want from us? To kill them? Come on. مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. Based on what are you judging others based on? This is why shirk is the greatest oppression. Through it, people justify usury. Riba is justified through shirk. Through it, discrimination is justified. Different laws are justified. Oppressive laws are justified. Wars are justified. All through shirk. This is why وَأَنْ أَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. Don't deviate and don't be amongst the mushrikeen. وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them. He says, فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا. They made so many different beliefs, divided their religious practices, and they became groups and parties. Everyone excited about what they got. And what do they claim? That others are wrong, they're going to hell, and so they justify harming others. I'm not saying that you don't defend, I'm not saying that you don't try and guide others if they are being, if they're harming others, that you don't intervene or interfere. All of these are exclusions. But to go out and just fight the people in the name of any religion, that is totally against any religion, any real and sincere religion, and that is shirk. The essence of it is shirk. وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنفَعُكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ وَإِن فَعَلْتَ فَإِنَّكَ إِذًا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Again, the confirmation of shirk being dhulm. If you call anyone other than God, you are oppressive. Zalimin, dhulm of to who? Dhulm to ourselves. Dhulm to humanity, to the society, to ourselves individually, or in terms of family and society and community. So, do not call وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ besides God those who do not bring any benefit to you or they cannot harm you. This is very important. Can I go to the doctor to ask for help? Can I call 911? I'm calling besides God and they cannot harm me or benefit me. Is that how it works? Unfortunately, we have some who go that far in their ideology. If you call anyone besides God, you are, according to them, you are a mushrik. Min dunillah is basically to think that they can do anything without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is min dunillah. Okay? So if I ask the doctor to help me, or call my parents to help me, or call 911 to help me, or call police to help me, if I'm calling any of these people, I know that they are tools. If God wants to help me, I can be helped. If God does not want to help me, nobody can help me. Okay. As long as I realize that, obviously wasila is okay. Seeking means for help is perfectly fine. So that is not to suggest that no one can bring any benefit or harm to me at all. No, without God, min dunillah, without God and His permission. If He has decreed, I mean, the way God brings us into this world is through our parents. Okay, the mother carries with so much pain, wahnan ala wahn. This is clear. Yes, God can create without the mother, but that's not how He made it. Sometimes He makes a miracle with Adam alayhi salam, no father, no mother. With Isa alayhi salam, with Jesus, peace be upon him, no father, just the mother. Yeah, God can do that. However, generally speaking, these are exclusions or exceptions. But in general, the world flows through certain means. And seeking those means is not shirk, but realizing, as long as we realize that it is with the permission of God. But if we seek anyone thinking that they can do it without the permission of God, that is a problem. So again, recognizing that nafa and darar, benefit and harm, happens through God. So you do your part. You call whoever you need to call. Okay, but at the same time, in your mind and heart, what should be your number one priority when you want something? I hope that the president can sign this for me, okay? Or I pray to God that if it's best, He'll make it happen. Whichever way. This president signs it, another president comes, and that president is gone. Whatever. You know. So our mind and heart should be connected to God. This is how it should be. And then we seek the means. God taught us, gave us intellect, seek the means. Gave us the mind and the ability to make deductions and calculations. And based on our calculations and deductions, we may take certain paths to seek help, to seek certain means. Nevertheless, deep in our heart and in our mind, we know for a fact that it's all with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ. If you do that, if you ever rely on anyone other than God, thinking that they can benefit you or harm you without the permission of God, that is dhulm, that is shirk, and that is dhulm. In the first ayah, he referred to it as وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, shirk. In the second ayah, he says, that is فَإِنَّكَ إِذًا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ, then you will be amongst the oppressors. Same thing. Okay? Calling besides God is shirk. Shirk is dhulm. And we read that in the other ayah, إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. It's not even just any average oppression. It's a great oppression. ظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. How are we going with time? We have, okay. Any questions, any comments before we move on to the next ayah? So we'll move on to the next ayah, inshallah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. It's part of, this ayah is actually one of the ayat that in a hadith, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, seek protection and basically guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against any harm with those ayat, 6 ayat. One of them is this ayah. He says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. If God allows, and here I am not translating word by word, but let's start with the translation first. We'll go back. وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ. And if God, if mas is touches, okay? وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ Allah. If God touches you with dur, with something that is not preferable. Dur, darar is harm. Okay, something that we don't want. Okay, something that we don't like to happen. He did not say su. He said dur. There's an important su. Maybe translated as evil. Okay, something bad. He calls it harm, not bad. Okay, maybe because it's not necessarily bad. Keep that in mind. That what we may perceive as bad, that dur, not favorable, harm. Okay, so for instance, loss of wealth. Okay, a transaction that goes bad, or an accident that physical harm occurs. Let's say somebody has an accident and now they have some injury. Okay, shoulder and neck injury, back injury, whatever. Okay, that harm is dur. But is it bad? Not necessarily. Yeah, that could be an introduction of something that you would be so happy eventually. I'm not speaking about money, although that's what makes many people happy, but that's not what I'm referring to. So in itself, it's not necessarily bad. However, there's a beautiful comment or point that our scholars make in this particular ayah. When it comes to, in the previous ayah, there's dur and nafa. There's harm and benefit. Okay, what benefits you and what harms you. Nothing happens without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? In this ayah, he says, if he touches you with some harm, nobody can, فَلَا كَاشِفَ, nobody can remove that except for him. إِلَّا هُ. Yes? And then, وَإِن يُرِدْكَ, and if he wants, if he has irada here, important, يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ, some goodness for you. If he wants goodness for you, nobody can block that. فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ, for his grace, for his benefits, for his goodness. Yeah? So nobody can block that. يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. Now, why didn't he say وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِضُرٍّ? He says وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ. But in the beginning he says وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ. Yeah, there's a difference. The suggestion is irada, it's his will. If he wills, if he wants something for you, if that's his decree, his will. His will is what? Goodness for you. What about the harm? He doesn't use the will part. The touching is basically saying if he allows the consequences that are set up in his in the formative level of creation. When he formed this world, he set certain rules, and some of those rules decree that you do this, this is the consequence. Some consequences are harm. Okay, if you put your hand in the fire, you're going to burn your hand. That's the harm that he allows. Okay, that is yamsaska Allahu bidurrin. Did he will that for you? Did he want that for you? No. That was the consequence based on your action. Whereas when it comes to khair, he wants that for you. So it says وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ. In fact, he wants goodness for us all the time. He is Arhamur Rahimin. He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He wants goodness for us all the time. He loves us. We sometimes block that ourselves, and we expose ourselves to some harm that is set in the formative level. In the takween, when he formed, when he created, in the level of the creation and formation, he set certain rules. We expose ourselves to harm through our own actions. Therefore, he says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ. Nobody can remove it. Again, this is important, that goodness and harm without his permission will never happen. So, dur and nafa comes from him. You call besides God, expect goodness from them without the permission of God, you're on the wrong path. That's shirk, and that's great oppression. Dhulm. Good or bad. And here he says, if he wants goodness for you, this is the amazing part. Not only goodness and bad and whatever is harm is allowed through him, but also when he allows it or decrees it, nobody can stop it. Positive or negative from our perspective, whichever way it is, nobody can stop it. فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ. And when it comes to goodness, it's not that we deserve it. Nobody can say, I deserve it. I did good, therefore I deserve good. If you did good, it's because God guided you to do good. Alhamdulillah. Praise belongs to God. Anything that's praiseworthy belongs to God. If my action is praiseworthy, who allowed it? Who guided me to it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, goodness is a favor and grace from God. فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ. Clarification. When He decrees good for you, nobody can block God's grace. It's from His graciousness. It's from His kindness that we're receiving anything good. فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. He makes it basically, isaba is when you hit the target. Okay, and this is an amazing expression as well here. When God wants good, He hits the target. When He allows bad to happen or allows harm to happen for anybody, it also the target only. Yeah. So it's never a mistake. It's never by an accidental thing. So there are no accidents. The reality is we see it as accident, but there are no accidents. Okay? Something falls, a tree falls and breaks your roof. It happened to me not long ago. Okay? And question, was it accidental? Or was I meant to struggle and clean up and fix and whatever? Which one? Could it be an accident? There are no accidents. يُصِيبُ بِهِ. God, when He decrees something, it's not, okay, I want goodness for Ali Raza, I mistakenly, it goes and hits someone else. Okay, and I want harm for somebody, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, it mistakenly harm somebody else. Never. يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. Whoever God wants, it will go to them. Good or harm, either way, it will go to them. من عباده وهو الغفور الرحيم. Subhanallah, amazing. The end of this ayah is so beautiful. Goodness is what? From His bounties, from His grace. It's not that we deserve it. Harm is because of our actions. What does harm require, or bad actions that bring harm? They require seeking forgiveness, and He is forgiving. Grace, recognition of His mercy. He is the merciful. وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. This, the end of the ayat, the names of God, the attributes of God mentioned in the ends of the ayat, never are like random. Never. In fact, if somebody puts the wrong one in there, it would be so obvious, so clear. So according to some story, some narration, an Arabi came complaining to the Prophet about a teacher who was teaching him the Quran because he was giving the wrong names of God in the end of one ayah. The ayah was about the wrath of God regarding the retribution and the cutting of the hand, which is to basically to purify the society from any kind of lowering the levels of crime and so on. So this particular ayah requires the understanding should have to do with the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, He's always Rahim, but this ayah does not end with Rahmah. Yeah, so the guy was ending this ayah with some Rahmah or Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim when it has to do with hikmah. Okay, and this is why he complained, and the Prophet had to correct the teacher who was teaching the ayah with a mistake with the end of the ayah. So then they had to focus on making sure that the ends are correct because they are through the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, after saying if He allows bad to happen or harm to happen to you, or if He wants goodness for you through His grace, Therefore, for the harm, Ghafoor. So whenever something harmful happens to you, what should you do? First thing. Should I question, why me? Huh? Out of all these roofs, why my roof? Should that be the attitude, or should it be astaghfirullah? The first thing should be astaghfirullah. Alhamdulillah. Thank God that He's purifying me, and forgive me for what I've done wrong. Yeah. وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ, because of your actions. Therefore, istighfar. وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ, because of His mercy, His grace. Therefore, recognition of hamd and the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to make sure regardless of which one comes, we are cognizant of God's forgiveness and mercy. Wallahu wa huwal ghafurur rahim. Should we? Okay, inshallah. So, yeah. Any questions or comments on this? If not, inshallah, we'll have the session for the youth. We'll have their hadith.
Sometimes you feel like you want to teach God.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you feel like
Teach God, yeah. Ahsan. Yeah, astaghfirullah. Yeah. It's like, okay.
You pray for something, you get it, and then after a while you're like, okay, now I do plan B, plan C.
Yeah.
The thing is,
Yeah. Yeah. If only we had, strong enough faith to realize that it is all through His mercy, and through His wisdom He allows certain harmful things to happen, but they're not necessarily bad for us. It is also part of His mercy, because rahmatihi wa rahmati wasa'at kulla shay. And we read in Dua Kumail, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasa'at kulla shay. His mercy encompasses everything. So even within those things that we may see as harm and therefore bad, and therefore we need to seek forgiveness, and He allows those things to happen to us, it's all still under the umbrella of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
next time we can have the verses also, the ones that normally mentioned, the other five for protection.
Okay, inshallah. I'll probably share the hadith, so all of them and there's a short dua at the end of it. And the group, ahsant, yes, I will do that, inshallah. Yeah, that way everyone will have access to it. It's a beautiful, it's 6 ayat with a short dua in the end, very short, and very powerful ayat. But again, whenever we read these things, it's to reflect on the meanings. Okay, it's not as I mentioned, it's a recipe. Okay, a recipe is not to read. Okay. If we're not gonna expect Ali Reza to put a recipe in the middle of the sofra for us. No, we want the actual. So these are recipes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, okay, so we'll have the hadith. There was
also, if you have the hadith of the week in Arabic and English,
and put it there.
Possible.
Inshallah, yeah, we could definitely do that. There was a discussion that maybe we could have afterwards, inshallah. Although if others wanted to participate, we can have it. Unless you want to have it now, we have a little bit of time. Yeah. No. So we'll have the hadith first, and if you wanted to have that any discussion on any side discussions, we can have that, inshallah. The hadith I want to share is a very short hadith, but very, very deep hadith. And that hadith is al-maw'idatu from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Al-maw'idatu hayatul qulub. Al-maw'idatu Hayatul Qulub, meaning maw'idha is reminders and advice. Okay, it is maw'idha, a reminder and advice, a good word, is the life of hearts. Okay, meaning our hearts are like our